Good day, everyone, and welcome to the PTSD Buddies podcast. I'm your host, Jamie McWhorter. PTSD Buddies is a nonprofit organization that helps people dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD Buddies provides online support through Facebook groups, and we currently have thousands of members all over the world. This podcast is dedicated to those members of PTSD Buddies, and these are their stories. On this episode of the PTSD Buddies podcast, I talked to Darlene from Newfoundland, Canada. Now, Darlene has an interesting and a different story to tell. You see, Darlene, while standing in her kitchen, was accidentally shot in the back by her husband with his hunting rifle. He was, attempting to clear his weapon. It accidentally went off, went through a wall, and shot Darlene in the back. Now, Darlene's 9-year-old daughter witnessed this and was pretty much the reason why probably Darlene is still alive today. Now, Darlene lives in a small town in Newfoundland, so she explains how when she was shot in the back, it was about an hour and 30-minute car ride or ambulance ride just to get to the hospital. So she tells us a very interesting story, a very crazy story, and she shows just how strong of a person she is. So just a few trigger warnings out there. This story can be hard to listen to for anyone with who went through a similar situation such as Darlene, being frightened in your own home. So without further ado, here's Darlene from Newfoundland, Canada. Hey everybody, and welcome to the PTSD Buddies podcast. I got another episode, and I'm with another fellow Newfoundlander. How's it going, Darlene?
It's going well.
Yeah, living the life on the island, eh?
Oh, yes. Yeah, no other place to be, let me tell you.
I really hope my accent doesn't get too thick, because when I talk to another Newfoundlander, my God, my dear, the accent can come in.
I know, I hear you. Mine too.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So, Darlene, PTSD, yes. You got it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. How long have you been dealing with it?
I have been dealing with PTSD since, my diagnosis came October 2015.
Forget the diagnosis. How long have you been dealing with
it? 6 years.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with 6 or 7 years, really. Well, what happened was back in July of 2014, I was accidentally shot in the back in a rural area of Newfoundland, hour and a half away from St. John's. No hospital close enough for my liking. And so woke up in the hospital the following day, still with the tubes down my throat and all this stuff, and thinking, what the hell happened? And I remember being shot, and then I went, oh my God, yeah, I was. Wow. So that's how PTSD came to be in my life.
Pardon me while I catch my breath, but you were shot in the back.
Yes.
By accident.
Yes.
And woke up in the hospital with tubes coming out of you.
Yeah, I actually remember I remember everything from the moment of impact, or before the moment of impact, until I arrived at the hospital and they put me out. So I'm thinking, sometimes I think it was really good that I remembered everything, because then I could talk about my situation. And,
right.
When I arrived at the hospital, obviously the doctors were very happy to see that I was awake.
Right.
But, the days after and the months after, and I'll even say years after, remembering everything wasn't such a good thing, because I could never forget. So it was just playing everything over my head always, every waking moment. Even just if my mind wasn't occupied on something else, then I was reliving the moment that the bullet hit me over and over and over and over. And the trip to the hospital, the trip out in the ambulance, the hour and a half and all that stuff. So
hour and a half in ambulance.
Yeah.
Is it traumatizing to talk about, Darlene?
It is not so much anymore.
Okay.
When I was first in the hospital the day that I woke up, I did not want to hear tell of being shot. I didn't want anybody to say the word. I didn't want to hear bullet. I didn't want to hear any of that. But when I was able to first say, or at least maybe accept, I was shocked. I think that was the day that I really started to open myself up to healing, but it's not hard anymore. I can tell the story without crying.
Yeah,
That took a long time.
I bet.
That took a, yeah, it took a really long time. I remember a year after the incident. So because this was a big news story, we'll say in around the Bay, and people knew, like it had made the news that I was shot. The different reporters from the different stations and the Telegram were trying to get my information
Right.
to get a story with me, and I was not in any way, shape, or form ready to do that. So 1 year after the fact, I know a lady who works for the Telegram, and I told her, I said, if you want the story, you can have it. And a year later, I still couldn't get through the story without crying several
Yeah.
times. So the fact that I'm able to keep a conversation going, and once people get over the what, you were shocked, and they look at me to see how I'm going to react further, I don't anymore so much. Sometimes I do, depends on the day, but most times I'm just happy to talk, not happy to talk about it, but willing to talk about it if people are interested in knowing.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember that night?
The shooting,
Yeah.
I remember everything,
You remember
everything.
everything, hey? It's
I remember from the moment of impact, I heard the sound. And within a millisecond, it seemed, the bullet was in my back. And my daughter was upstairs with my niece. We were in my brother-in-law's house. And like I said, my daughter was upstairs with my niece. She was 9 at the time, my niece was 10. They were the ones that called for help because, believe it or not, I was accidentally shot by my husband. The people then had their own thoughts. Well, oh, something was going on. She was having an affair. She was this or she was that. It truly was 110% accidental. We weren't in the same room together. He moved the firearm, didn't know that it was loaded, although he had a lot of guilt after thinking, or he even said, he was raised around firearms and they're told you treat it like it's loaded, even if you know it's not.
yeah.
So, but he accidentally struck it and he pulled the trigger. So the bullet came from 2 walls and a door and hit me in the back at close range. I was maybe 10 feet from him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I started screaming, and he basically comes out and says, "What are you screaming at?" I'm like, "You shot me." He said, "I didn't shoot you." And I grabbed my shirt. I'm like, "Yes, you did." So he started to flip out completely.
Yeah, trauma for
And
everybody.
so, yeah, and I thought, oh my God, I'm the one with the bullet, and I'm the one that's got to try to be sensible. So I'm like, okay, my legs are working because I'm still walking. My heart is pounding, and it's working because it's pounding right out of my body. I'm breathing, so there's no damage to my lungs. I'm like, okay, it's not good, but I need help. So I grab the phone, and I'm like, you need to call for help. And he's like, I don't know the number. I was like, seriously, you don't know the number? But there was no 911 there at the time,
Yeah.
so it was a bit tangly. Although my daughter at 9 knew to look in the phone book to where the ambulance house number. So she was the one that called for help,
Hero.
which is wild. Yeah, yep,
That's hero
totally.
status right there on your daughter. Stepping up.
Oh yes,
Because that's traumatizing for her too.
yes, and
How old
so
how old was
uh,
she,
uh,
Darlene?
sorry,
How old was your daughter at the time?
she was 9.
9.
9.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And I remember certain things about that day prior to it happening. And on our driving around the bay, this happened in St. Mary's. And I just remember looking at her in the back of the truck and she was asleep. And I thought, oh my God, how sweet, how beautiful. She's my little girl. And then here she is, like 6 hours later, she's calling an ambulance to save her mother.
On the
Wow.
phone, we need an ambulance stat.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
she said, my mom has been shot. And everybody's like, what? Sure. Like, what do you mean? So one
Wow.
of the paramedics was actually my mom's cousin. And he said when he got the call, he just thought, someone was cleaning their gun and maybe they had, shot themselves, like, just grazed their arm or something. He said he had no thought in his head that when he walked in that it would be someone on the floor with a bullet in their back.
Yeah.
And he said, and it was you, Darlene. Yep. So,
Wow.
but,
Oh my God.
I rushed to the hospital, and I guess you've seen it in movies where they open up the back of the ambulance and they actually like pull you out and you
Yeah.
go, like run. That happens because it happened to me, and I was like, holy
Well, you're
crap. And
far
the
away,
doc,
right? You had a drive ahead of you. right?
Yeah, we were an hour and a half, and
Hour and
we
a half with a
actually hour and a half.
bullet in you, or
And
did it go through you?
no, it stayed in me,
It's in
and
you. Holy
that's
jeez.
actually what saved me. If it had gone out,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have made it. So
Wow.
when the bullet
Wow.
went in my back, it took a left turn. We'll say it hit my diaphragm and took a left turn and landed in my armpit on the left side.
Oh my.
So yep. And when I got to the hospital, of course, there's like people over you and they're talking. And the doctor asked me, did I know my name? Did I know the date? Did I know what had happened to me? And I said, yes. And I remember him saying, I know where the bullet is. And I was like, you do? And he touched where it was bruising.
Yeah.
And so he touched it. He's like, there it is. I'm like, yep, there it is. Yeah, it was.
Unbelievable, man. Oh my God.
I know it's nuts. And he says to me, Darlene, the only way we can fix this is to go to surgery. And I was like, no shit. Like, what did you, I don't know what you thought I was thinking, but I thought there's definitely going to have to be some surgery. And so, of course, they opened me up to check my organs and to see if they could extract the bullet. They couldn't. And when I woke up and found out that that was still in me, I think that was my first episode of oh my God, I can't live like this. I thought I can't live with the bullet still inside me. And logically, medically speaking, the doctor said, look, we have way more to worry about than that. It's in your muscle. It's not going to hurt you. We'll take it out when you're recovered from all the rest of this. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I can't live with this stuck in me.
Yes.
I couldn't touch it. Eventually I did, but I was just like, oh my God, I got to get it out. But I was 3 months or so recovering from all the other injuries or the surgery that I had and the bullet wound. I had a chest tube, and then I had shrapnel on one side, and I had debris from the wall had impaled me, so they had to scoop all that out. I was in no way in any shape to have any more surgery, but I was like, you had me asleep, man. Why couldn't you have taken that out? Anyway,
Man.
so when I woke up the next morning in the hospital, like I said, I had that realization, holy crap, something's happened, something bad. I remember being shot, and then I realized that I still was intubated, and I lost my shit big time.
Yeah.
I was restrained and in the bed, so I wouldn't pull any of the tubes, and I just started to lose my mind.
Yeah.
And then my sister was in the ICU with me, and my very best friend, and I could hear the nurse saying, "You got to keep her calm. You got to keep her calm." And I was like, "You think you're keeping this one calm? That ain't happening. Like that's not happening."
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a bit of a road to recovery. The doctor said to me, sort of very early on, it might have been in the first couple of days, he said, Darlene, your physical scars are going to heal way faster than your mental scars. And I was like, yep, you got that right. Because I didn't know how to be the Darlene before she was shot. All I could think of was she was gone, and I don't know how to be the Darlene going forward. They were very concerned, which was really good to see about my mental health while I was in the hospital. They sent counselors to see me every day. But I was sometimes afraid to share with them what I was feeling, and that bothered me too. Not that I was contemplating suicide, but I had thoughts of suicide, and all that's hard to it's. What do you mean you weren't thinking about it if you were, thinking about it? But I wasn't thinking that I was going to take my life. I was just like it's hard. It's really hard to explain how I was feeling. I didn't feel like I wanted to die because I had just been through so much, and I was like, no, I fought to live this far. We're going to keep going.
Right.
But I had thoughts, and then I thought, oh my God, I'm going to become a drug addict or an alcoholic because I don't know how to be normal, and I just want the pain to go away. I want the memories to go away. Every time I close my eyes, I relive the moment of the impact. And I could see myself like I was in a movie or it was an out-of-body experience. I could see how I was dressed that day, and the moment of impact kept happening. And I was like, shit, I don't know how to stop these thoughts. And I just wanted them to stop.
Yeah.
So it was tough. I didn't want to be alone in the hospital. I was really afraid just because I didn't want to think that. With the nurses really kept a good eye to me. And, my aunt had tons of family visiting all the time. So it wasn't really until I got home that everything was like, wow, what do I do now? Like it was tough. The first, it's almost a blur. I'm going to say the first month or so, but I remember the dreams vividly. It's more the night times that I remember.
Yeah.
I relived being shot over and over. And I remember waking up one night. I was dreaming that I was shot again, but this time I was shot in the head. And I woke up screaming, and I had grabbed my head, and my husband said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I'm shot, I'm shot, I'm shot." He said, "No, Darlene, you're not." I said, "I am," and I was screaming my head off, and I could see blood on my hands. There was no blood on my hands. And he's like, "Darlene, you need to go turn on the light and look in the mirror. You are okay." But I wouldn't believe him, and he had to take me to the light and flick it on and push me in front of the mirror. And he's like, "You are okay."
Wow.
So yeah, it's they were tough dreams, and
Man, that sounds tough.
yeah, it was a really tough time. Then I started what I'll call therapy with the employee assistance program.
Okay.
Probably a few months after, and very quickly I knew that this poor gentleman, although he was very kind to me and he was trying to help me learn to relax, I needed something more. So I stopped the counseling sessions with him, and a year later, in October of 2015, I went to see my doctor, and she picked up on it actually. I forget what the appointment was for. It wasn't for my mental health at all, but she just could tell that there was a difference in me. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She said, "No, really, are you okay? Are you still having the dreams? And tell me about your life. I'm like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Are you still doing all the things that you used to enjoy before the accident?" And I was like, "Huh?" And she said she knew that I loved to read. And she said, "Are you still reading?" And I was like, "No, I haven't. I couldn't read as so much as a magazine. I could not let my mind go. I had to always be in control. I don't know why, but I couldn't let it slip to an alternate, universe. If you're I could get engrossed in a book, no problem.
Right.
And this I couldn't." And she said, "Oh, so what else?" And she said, "Are you having trouble doing anything?" I said, "Well, honestly, I'm having trouble sleeping in the dark. I'm having trouble staying asleep. I'm having a lot of anxiety." I just started spewing. I said, "I'm afraid all the time. I don't trust." And part of the problem there, I think, was because I was in a place that I thought I was safe, and I wasn't.
Right.
So being outside, being in a store, I couldn't go to a movie in the dark with other people around me. Didn't want to go to any concerts or any hockey games or anything at Mall 1. And I was just like, I can't be around people because I don't trust anybody.
Yeah, these
Even
are all
driving a
triggers
car
to you
by
now.
myself. What's that?
I said these are all triggers to you now.
Yeah, oh, big time.
Yep.
And then loud sounds really, really
Of
were
course.
bothersome to me.
Of course it does. I imagine fireworks is bad.
Fireworks was horrible. I used to, for the first 2 years, I would put my earphones in and just play music and crank it so I couldn't hear anything on New Year's Eve. And it was the second New Year's Eve, actually, that I did that. I went, "No, I'm not doing this a third time. This is crazy. I want to enjoy this." I used to love watching fireworks and, New Year's Eve and stuff like that. I was like, "I'm not doing this again." So I vowed that the following year I was going to listen to the fireworks. And I'm very happy to say that I did.
You're a fighter.
Yeah, it was tough. And when I heard the PTSD, back to my doctor's appointment, she said to me, "Darlene, it sounds like you're going through post-traumatic stress disorder." And I went, And she said, "I really do think that you're not doing things that you normally did. Your life is now altered." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm having anxiety and stuff like that." She said, "I think it's more than that, and I think you need to see a psychologist." And she actually had a friend who specialized in PTSD. Okay. But I was horrified. I cried. I was like, "I can't have PTSD. People with PTSD do crazy shit. I can't. I don't want to be, somebody in the media who's, there's going to be a story about me doing something, harming someone or harming myself or doing something just really outrageous." And I didn't want to be told that I had PTSD. And it took me a few weeks to actually get up the courage to call my doctor. Dr. Jen Neal is her name. and make an appointment. So my first, I'll say, consultation with her, I told her I really, really, really hate the term PTSD. And I said, it makes me sound like there's really, really something wrong with me and I'm a freak. And she said, no, it doesn't. It's a legitimate illness. And I said, I know that, but I don't want to be known as someone with post-traumatic stress disorder. And she said, okay, well, you'll be someone who has you'll be a post-traumatic stress survivor. And I said, I like that, Jen. So please don't say PTSD anymore. Say PTSS. So that's how we talked about it. And that helped because I also didn't want the stigma of the PTSD. And I know that sounds horrible, but I just thought I can't deal with this. I don't know how to process being told that this is what I have now. And I didn't know where to go from there. But thankfully, Jen is a pro at what she does. And, we had a long road. It was 2.5 years of therapy. And she made me do things that I didn't want to do. I'm telling you, we fought like two cats. She told me on my day one, she said, you will have to do things that you really do not want to do, but you've put your mental health in my hands and I want to help you get better. You want to be better, don't you? And I said, yes, I can't live like this anymore. I need to move forward. So she said, well, then you have to listen to what I want you to do. And she said, you might fight me on it and we might argue, but you still have to do what I want you to do. I'm like, okay, Jen, I might tell you to go fuck yourself. Forgive me for saying that, but I mean it with all kinds of love. And so what started that day was a step-by-step process to get me back to doing things that I like to do by helping me, I'm not going to say get over, but learn to deal with things that I was afraid to do. So one of the first things was, I had to sleep in the dark for a couple of hours at night. If I woke up and I was really nervous, I could flick the light on. And then it went to like my graduation things, or my things that would propel me into graduation, as I called it, would be, dealing with the fireworks and stuff like that. But she started small. So for a week, I had to carry around a bullet casing in my pocket and I had to touch it. Then the next week I would have to look at a picture of firearms and, not just look at it once and put it away, but really make an effort to make it part of my everyday. And then another time I had to actually touch my bullet wound, which I would not allow anybody to do. I wouldn't even do it. Like I avoided that like the plague. And the day that she wanted me to do it, I knew that was our next thing. And she said, come and stand in front of me so I can touch it. I was like, you're fucking sick if you think I'm going over there to let you put your finger in my hole. Not happening. And she said, you need to let me do this. And I was like, Jen, I can't. And she would always say, okay, so where's your anxiety level right now? 0 being really good, 10 being I need to call an ambulance. I'm like 15. But so those are some of the things. So she touched it and then she made me touch it. And then so it was, my homework for that week was to several times a day actually put my hand back there and touch the hole. And I didn't have to like it. She said to me, it was one of the things she said, you never have to like anything that you're doing, but you need to do it so that you're comfortable with it and that you can, so that you know that you can. So I'm like, okay. So my graduation, that's what I called it, to being released from therapy, was I had to go shoot at the range over on O'Leary Avenue. And it was tough. But I'm so happy to say that I shot 60 rounds. And
wow.
Yeah, I don't want to do it again, never.
Yep.
But I was able to shoot 60 rounds, whereas, 9 months before that, I couldn't even listen to firearms or bullets on YouTube or whatever without having a full-on meltdown. So that was sorry, I went on a long path of my recovery or my therapy sessions, but that's the sort of what she had me do. And it was, I guess, somewhat to desensitize me to it all. I'm not cured, I'm going to say. I still have moments. I know that I have triggers. Obviously, one of them is loud unexpected noises. If I know it's coming and I can prepare for it, I deal a lot better. But even just a little while ago, I was at work and we had a food truck come to our parking lot, and we were on a very busy corner. We're all standing talking, getting something to eat, and all of a sudden a truck backfired, and it was behind me. I lost my shit right then and there. I started to cry, and uncontrollably, and I wanted so badly to get out of there, and I was trying to get away from everybody, but one of my coworkers who knew my story and knew my struggle grabbed me, and she said, no, you stay here, you're okay, just come over here, we're going to talk, we're going to calm down. And I couldn't breathe, and she had to talk me through just the physical thing of breathing, because I was like, I can't. And she's like, you are okay. It was just a truck. You need to just try to calm yourself down. And so that was my first real big, I'll say, episode since being finished my therapy. And I, not that I expected that I was going to be cured, quote unquote, but I really thought I wouldn't have that again. I was wrong, completely wrong. So, and I had one not too long ago. I was opening a pop can, and I didn't know that the pop can had been heated, which caused it to expand. So when I opened it, it popped.
No way.
And I had, just okay, I'm okay. I know I didn't expect it, but I'm safe. And that's my thing. I have to go to, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, and just keep repeating that and focus on my breathing to make sure that I'm actually breathing and not going into hyperventilation. So, but yeah. So I still have triggers. The noises are the big one. But going back to the fireworks, 2 Christmases ago, I was at my sister-in-law's house, and you don't often hear fireworks on Christmas Eve, but for this particular night, people were setting them off. And prior to, I told you that I'd always have to put in my earphones, or I'd get very upset and try to go into a room and not hear them. So I wasn't paying attention to the fireworks, and my daughter and 2 of my nieces were looking at me going, you don't hear that? And I was like, hear what? And Bella, who is my daughter, she said, Mom, there's fireworks. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, don't I look okay? But so I laugh at it. I can laugh at it now. It wasn't so funny, a couple of years prior, but, I can tolerate. I know what they are. So, the 2.5 years of therapy helped me. I'm not cured, but I can get through the day.
It's getting better.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting better. I still don't like the look of firearms. I don't want to see them. I really don't trust with firearms. I don't go around and ask people when I go to their homes, do you have any firearms, and are they locked up properly, or are they safe? But if someone tells me that they own firearms, I'm very hesitant to go back just because I don't trust. And that's judgmental, I know, but having been on the really bad side of it, I think it's kind of justified. So,
well, that's it. You went through
that?
You went through something super traumatic, so you can't help the way you feel, Darlene. I mean,
no,
that's super traumatic. You got shot.
Yeah.
In your own house.
Yeah, it was my brother-in-law's house.
Oh, okay. Well, in his house.
Family's house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, the whole thing about it happened where I felt I was safe was hard for me to move forward from as well, because then I just never ever felt safe.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm not like that as much anymore, but I'm very cognizant of, like I said, with people who are hunters, and if I know that if they're avid hunters, then I know somewhere around here there's firearms, and hopefully they're locked up in a cabinet and ammunition is not with them and elsewhere. But this was also went through the court system. And when the police officers were investigating, I talked to one of them after the fact, and he said, unfortunately, in rural Newfoundland and in rural Canada, this is a real problem with people, being negligent, and not necessarily intending to be negligent, but it's still negligent, not being safe and not putting the firearms away properly, and storing them improperly and that kind of thing. So. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. So,
yeah. I mean, I don't want to traumatize you more, but you got shot in the back. They're a couple inches to the left or right.
Well, yeah.
You don't know. I mean.
Yeah, the bullet hit me The doctor said it's about 1.5 centimeters away from my spine.
Well,
But it also could have hit that my spine. It could have hit my spleen. It could have hit my lungs. It could have hit my heart, and it didn't. So as bad as the situation was, I guess I had the best of it, the best outcome. The damage that I have from the bullet is damage to my diaphragm, because it actually struck the diaphragm and it took its turn left, and then a little bit of damage under my lung from the bullet. And then when I had the chest tube, my lung, when they took it out, my lung didn't inflate fully. So I only have 1.5 good lungs. So,
wow.
but considering what the alternative could have been,
Yeah.
many people have said to me, "Do you know how lucky you are?" Yep, totally no.
Yeah,
Totally no.
feels like I won the lottery. Thanks.
Totally feels like I won the lottery. And some people go, "Oh my God, Darlene, only you." I'm like, yeah, kind of only me. Like, how many people do you know that you can say they've been shot? So one of my friends, who's my longtime friend, he calls me Annie Oakley because he thinks it's hilarious that I'm a badass because I was shot and I have shrapnel. And then I went and, did the whole gun range thing. So he's trying to be very light about it, but, it's he still recognizes the seriousness of it. So I wasn't always able to talk so freely about it, obviously. And there was a lot of things that were difficult. And I'll just touch on, if you don't mind, my family. So it was traumatic for them too. My parents didn't know if their daughter was going to live or die. Same with my sister, my daughter.
Yes.
But once they knew that my physical being was going to be okay, not that they stopped talking about the shooting, because they'd always ask, how you doing? How are the wounds? That kind of thing. But they never talked about what was going on in my head. And it was a very lonely place to be. Partly because, I didn't want to share a lot with my parents. They had been through enough. It aged them 25 years that night. I didn't want them to be upset, but I needed to talk, and I needed to talk bad. And one of my aunts, actually, who had been in a very serious car accident 30 years before my accident, said to me in the hospital, she said, "Honey, when I went through this, nobody let me talk. But she said, if anybody opens themselves up to you, you talk and talk and talk and talk until you can't talk anymore.
Yep.
You get it out." And that's what I wanted to do, but nobody wanted to talk to me about it, because nobody wanted to bring up the subject, because they didn't want to upset me, and they didn't want to make me relive it, and they didn't want to make me cry. And all the while I'm thinking, it doesn't matter if I cry. I'll get over it if I cry. I need you to talk to me. I need to have this conversation with you. I'm struggling, and I'm struggling by myself. So that was a bit tough.
You must have felt so alone.
Yes, very much. And then the whole post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis, and I thought, holy crap, I can't do this by myself. So I was just like, blah, here you go. I obviously can talk very well. I have no trouble speaking. So I would just, not even if they wanted to listen, I'm just, here you go. I'm going to tell you what's going on in my head, because I need to talk and I need to get this out.
Yeah.
And some people were like, I don't want to know, and I don't want to have this conversation. But most people were like, oh, okay. Like, if you want to share, come on, keep sharing. Like, nobody would approach me to do it first. It was always me having to say, do you mind if I say this to you? Can I tell you what's going on? Like, can I tell you about my therapy? And so I'm still trying to be very much that person. Sometimes I might be overbearing for others, but I don't care because I needed to do it and I needed to be well. So here I am.
You got to look after yourself.
Yes. Nobody was going to do this for me, and nobody could do it for me, but I needed to at least have people understand what's going on in my head and how much of an impact this did have on me and on my entire life. Huge.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it was a huge impact.
It was.
What was life like before PTSD?
What
kind of person were you?
What's that?
I said, tell us what kind of person you were. Like, what was life like for you before PTSD? Who was Darlene?
I was a worrier. I always was a worrier, and I was always, I'm going to say, that anxious child who, wanted to make sure my sister was okay, wanted to make sure my parents were okay, and how come you were too long, and you said you were going to be home at this time, and now I'm freaking out because you're not home. So I was always that child. And I became that adult, we'll say. And I did have some counseling sessions, we'll say, just for coping mechanisms so that I wouldn't be so anxious and kind of live in the moment and be mindful and that sort of thing. But this, after the accident, it was that times 1,000. Like, I thought I had suffered from anxiety before. No, it was very, and I don't mean to diminish anybody's anxiety who's going through it now, but to my life, what I was experiencing after the accident was for way more intense than I had ever experienced in my life. And, again, part of the reason why I thought, I don't know how to do this. Like, I can handle, smaller intensity anxiety. I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. And I knew I needed outside help. It might have taken me a bit to actually go get that help, but I think I knew as soon as I woke up that I could not do this by myself, and I needed intervention through someone who was professional. I couldn't do it on my own. There was no way.
Wow, you knew right away. Hey, you could feel it.
I could, and I was scared. Like, I was so scared because I thought, what's going to happen to me until I can get that help, and what's my life going to be like? And I was already having trauma, like, flashbacks and so forth. And I'm like, and this is only the beginning. Like, this is hour like 2, and this is how it is. I knew. So if I'm going to beat this, then I'm going to need help doing it. And unfortunately, so many people don't go for that help. But I knew I couldn't put it off for a long time. I knew if I wanted to be even a little bit better, that I needed to seek somebody out. And I'm so glad I did.
Where was the first place you turned?
You know what? The first place I turned was our church. I'm a very avid churchgoer, and the parish priest, really nice man and really down to earth man. And I told him, I said, I need help, Father Ray, and he said, that's okay, you can get that help. And I needed him to, I don't know why I needed him to know, but I needed him to maybe give me permission or understand. He was a very, very compassionate person. And although he was a priest, he had done some things that were, I'm going to say, unpriestly. He had, and he did, I know he wouldn't mind me telling this because he was very open with his parishioners, but he had been charged with drunk driving, and this was all around the same time that my accident happened. And he said, it's okay to need help. He said, I need help. He said, I have a problem and I've had to reach out for help. And he said, it's okay that if you do too. He wanted to make sure that it really was an accident, what happened. And I was like, yes, Father Ray, rest assured, I know in my heart of hearts it was a complete accident. So he was the first person that I turned to. It wasn't any of my family. Not that I didn't think that they would give me the same info, but he was the first one.
That's cool. That's good. And he was able to help, though.
He was, and he made me feel, he was the first person that made me feel that I wasn't completely alone, and that I knew if I needed to, that I could go to him. And he prayed with me, and I'm not going to put my spirituality out onto anyone, and I'm not saying that this is going to work for everyone, but when I was in those really bad spots, I needed to even just say the Our Father, and I was like, I can't be alone. I need to know that there's a spirit here with me, that the divine is here with me, helping me through this moment. So that helped too, I gotta say.
Yeah, Darlene, listen to you talk. It's easy to see that your memory of the trauma is so good. Like it's like it happened yesterday.
It's how it feels. Yeah.
It's funny how our brains can remember the trauma, the bad times.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes. So easily. Like, I remember so much of the trip in the ambulance, we'll say, that or when they were loading me into the ambulance, or when the doctor was talking to me and asking me the questions, they're so vivid. And someone had said to me once, write your memories down, and because one day they're going to fade. And I was like, no, I don't think so. They're not going to fade. These are pretty clear. They're not going anywhere just yet. But even to the point when I was in the hospital, that I remember the nurses' names. And I didn't make a conscious effort to do that, but I remember so much about all of it, which is why, in the early days, I was thinking, wow, it would have been better if I had, gone to sleep.
Yeah.
Or passed out. But apparently that would not have been good. So
So you stayed awake the whole time in the ambulance?
the whole time,
Uh,
and we had to stop on the Samuel line. So, the ambulances in and around the Bay are not accustomed and prepared to deal with this sort of trauma. So they dispatched to the health sciences, and the health sciences sent a trauma unit to meet me.
okay.
So they were stopped on the Samuel line. And because I was, I'll say, stabilized in the ambulance, where they had stopped the bleeding and so forth. Like they had stuff like packing in my back and whatever. And, they had gotten the IVs in me and I was still awake. They didn't want to move me. So they had the trauma um, team jump aboard my ambulance, and we went on from there. But I remember, it's funny now, it wasn't funny then, but I remember the paramedic, one of the paramedics who originated with me in St. Mary's, she was advocating for me like nobody's business, which was awesome, because when the trauma paramedic got on board, he wanted to do all this, I'll say, testing my vitals and everything. And she's like, we've done that. We've been doing it since she's got aboard. So, like, we need to go. This woman needs to be in a hospital. She's going to die on the side of the road. And I remember her saying, die on the side of the road. I went, no, I don't think so. Like, I have other plans. That's not happening.
You
And they got
heard
into,
you
what's
heard
that?
you heard those words.
I did.
That's traumatizing right there.
Yep. And I thought, what the hell are we waiting for? Let's go. They actually got into a verbal altercation in the ambulance.
You're kidding.
No. And she was like, what are you doing? Like, we need to go. And he was pulling rank because he did outrank her. And he did something really stupid. He didn't like how my IV was in my arm. So because I was sweating and I was going into shock, they couldn't keep the IV in me. So I think they used like a whole roll of tape to try to keep it in. And then they taped my arm to the wall of the ambulance. So he didn't think that was pretty enough to go to the hospital with. And she's like, what are you doing? He took my IV out before he put a new one in. And apparently in medicine, that's a big no-no. And he actually got suspended for doing that.
Ouch.
Yeah, but they're like, she had been going into shock. We had a hard enough time to try to get that in. No. So yeah, then we go to the hospital, and I remember everything the doctor saying to me. Like I said, asking my name, telling me what was happening. And then at one point, I heard the anesthesiologist say, I didn't know who he was at the time. I know who he is now. But he was talking to his team, and he said, it's all likelihood she's going to crash on the table, so we need to be prepared for that. And I went, sorry again, I'm going to use some bad language, but I went, motherfuck, you think I'm going to die?
Yeah.
No, like, we're not doing this. And I remember before they put me out thinking, I prayed, I was like, dear God, if I ever need you before, I need you now, please help me. And that's all I remember before the surgery. He put me out right then. So I was really upset by that comment, and I couldn't tell anybody that for a long time. And I do have a friend who's an anesthesiologist also, and I said, Steve, this is what he said. And he said, Darlene, he's a brilliant doctor, but he's a social moron. He said he could have said that in so many other ways that you wouldn't have known what he was talking about. But he knew I was conscious.
Yeah.
And he knew that I knew what was happening. And you're going to say that
Yeah.
I can hear you? I thought, oh my God, dude. Anyway.
I'll say it again, Darlene. You're a fighter, man. Ooh.
Thank you. I like to think so. Spidey, and that's what got me through my therapy. That's what Jen used to always tell me. She said, "Bring your Spidey bitch out." So here's Spidey bitch.
Yeah.
I got a tattoo, so I wanted to do something not to commemorate my accident, but I wanted to make it positive and to commemorate my survival. So I got I say it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It's a guardian angel, and I put it on my back. And it has faith and strength on either side. And I got the guardian angels because there's no reason why I should have made it out of there alive or with, the minimal amount of injury that I have. But I did. And it was because of my guardian angels and the wonderful people of our healthcare system and the paramedics that did what they needed to do for me. And then after my, like I call it, my graduation, when I did the shooting range, one of my cousins said something to me that just touched me. And she said, you're a real life warrior. And I want to cry now thinking about it. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, look what you've done. Look what you've done. It's like, wow, thank you. So I also have warrior in Chinese script on my arm. So
That's cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's
Well, she's
those
not
are,
lying, Darlene. Look what you've
what,
been through.
yeah, it's crazy.
Right,
It's
and
crazy.
you got shot, and you're gonna be like, you know what, PTSD in your face. I'm gonna go shoot some guns now.
Yeah, exactly right. I don't want to do it again, but I did it once, and that it back. My accident was the 26th of August, or sorry, July 2014. So on the 27th of July, when I woke up, there was no way that I was even feeling close to being able to do any of it, and it was a long, tough road, but it was so worth it. I got my life back, and this is where I get emotional because it was tough, and it was a fight every single step. But I thought, I got to do it. I need to do it for me, and I need to do it for my little hero who saved me. So yeah, I wanted to be me again, and although it's a brand new me, um, she's she's pretty good.
You must be such an inspiration to your daughter.
I like to think so.
Oh, I know so.
She's different than me though. She
She
doesn't
has
like
to
to
be
talk
so
about
proud. My
trauma.
mom got shot and is kicking butt.
Yeah, she that year, I think it was that year, or the year after, they had to do a little thing in school about who your inspiration is, and she picked me
Yep.
and wrote a little something, and it was
How did that
really
feel?
touching.
How did that
Oh,
feel?
it was awesome, and I just thought, wow, I did this for my own health. But the fact that she thinks that I'm an inspiration to her was amazing.
It
Yeah,
must be amazing. Yes.
yeah, it was. It was, and she's still she tells people about my fight, and at first she didn't want to talk to people about it, and I understand that. Like, it was a big trauma in our family, huge, and it was a lot to try to move forward from. We've all been to counseling. I'm going to say the only one that's gone to the post-traumatic stress counseling, we'll say, or therapy. But everybody who was in that house that day has had some form of therapy or another. Um, so that it took her a little bit longer to talk about it. But when she talks about me, and she tells people that I'm strong, uh, it makes me feel pretty good.
I bet it does. She's proud of you.
She is, and it means a lot. It does, because
She has
at
good
least she
reason to be
sees,
proud of you too.
what's that?
She has a good reason to be proud of you too.
Thanks, thanks. But
Yeah.
it's a tough road. Um, One that I'm glad that I took, though. If I had to do it again, I certainly would. I really would. It was worth every tear that I shed, every time that I was upset about having to do something. It was well worth it. I have my life, and it's amazing.
And let me just say, your daughter, uh, I don't know if should I say she should be or she must be proud to tell the story because I think she's the hero out of that story.
She is.
She
She
stepped
really.
in, grabbed the phone, and took control of the situation. That is rare in people, let alone a child.
Right? Yeah. And my niece apparently was melting a little bit. She was having a bit of a meltdown. And Bella, they were in a bedroom, and Bella said, Caitlin, sit down, watch TV. And she turned the TV on for her. And
Yeah,
I laugh, but that was what she did to keep Caitlin calm and get her out of her hair for a minute.
yeah.
So
This
she
story,
really,
she needs to be on Ellen or
she does.
something. What's that one? I don't even remember now. But yeah, Ellen DeGeneres definitely would eat this up. My God, she's a hero.
Oh, she is. She definitely is. And she called for help initially, and then when the ambulance wasn't coming fast enough for her liking, she called them back.
You're kidding.
No, yeah,
Oh
she
man,
did.
I love her.
Yeah, she's good that way. Like, she's very persistent and determined. Like, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So Yeah, it was impactful to us all. Definitely. Definitely.
Darlene, I've been doing PTSD buddy stuff since 2015,
Mhm.
and I've done group support meetings and things, and I've got to meet a lot of people. And you're not the first person I've talked to
Mhm.
who has been shot at in their home.
It's crazy.
Um, and the people that I know are struggling
Hmm.
to feel safe in their own home. Is that
Yeah.
something you deal with?
Not so much anymore,
Yeah.
but yes, that was huge. I was afraid of everything, every little noise, every little creak, and like I was always, I'm gonna say tense. Like even right now, my shoulders are tensing, like from the anticipation um, of what's coming,
Yep.
what's gonna hit me, what's coming from behind. That I don't feel that way anymore, thank goodness.
Darlene, I got to ask then, I don't mean to cut you off, but my
That's
listeners are
okay.
going to dying to know what made it easier.
Talking, talking,
Talking?
talking, talking.
Yep. Yep.
Definitely talking to anybody who would listen. And I've often said that to people. If you're willing to give me your ear, I'm willing to share it with you. I didn't always want to talk about it. It was difficult at first. But once I started talking, I didn't want to stop. And I wanted people to know how this affected me personally and the struggle, and not for people to feel sorry for me. That's not why. It was to understand what happens to someone who's going through trauma.
Yeah.
And you don't really understand it until you go through it yourself, thankfully, if you've never experienced trauma, and I hope people never do, but you don't get it until you've experienced it. And I wanted people to know, like I was a quote unquote normal person, and I'm battling for my mental health. And I want people to see that and to know that it is tough, and to not have you know, stereotypes or judgments about people who are dealing with trauma or any other type of mental illness, like, you know, post-traumatic stress, because it is one fucking hell of a struggle. And people need to realize how much of a struggle it is. And like I said, I'll say normal, and this happened to me. And now I'm just shoved in a situation that I didn't cause, that I need to deal with.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to deal with it. So, yeah, I wanted people to see that, and to not just, I don't want to say look the other way, but just like, oh, ho hum, it's not a big deal. Oh, it's a big deal. You need to know how big of a fucking deal it is.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and at one point a comment was made to me, well, you should just get over it. I was like, really? I should just get over it. I said, how do you just get over a bullet in your back and reliving the memories every single day? How do you do that? Please tell me, because if you can teach me, I'll love to learn. They
Yeah.
didn't say that to me again.
Exactly. I've said it to people before too. I've said it on this podcast. Oh, yeah? Well, stop being afraid of spiders.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick them up and let
See
them
that?
crawl all over your hair then. Let them crawl in your
Right,
hair. No.
right. Let's see how well that works for you.
Yeah. You jerk.
Right, right. But anyway, yeah.
Darlene, you
So.
talked earlier about your family, and it was difficult for them
Mhm.
uh, going through the shooting. How was it with your family and the PTSD?
They didn't get it. Um, they, not that they thought I could get over it, but um, they didn't understand why I was, I'll say, stuck, or why I was so nervous about things, and, you know, not being able to sleep with the lights off and stuff like that. And they didn't really want to talk about it at first. Like, I remember calling my mom and saying, Mom, I've been diagnosed with PTSD. She said, you'll be all right, Tim. You'll be all right. And I was like, no, I don't need you to be patronizing to me, Mom. I need you. I'm telling you that this is really bothersome to me, and I don't know what the fuck to do. And she's like, well, you know, what did the doctor suggest? And I said, Mom, she says I need therapy. Okay, well, you know, that's what you need to do. And I'm just like, are you trying to fluff me off here? Not that I thought she was, but she didn't want to upset me. I wanted someone to say, oh, fuck, that's shitty, you know, or, oh, shit, like, what are
Yeah,
you going to
yeah,
do?
I get it. Yeah, she was trying to just blow it off. Oh, well, that's not a big deal. I mean,
Yeah, you're
eh,
gonna be okay.
it's not that you got a
How do you know
broken
I'm gonna
arm
be
or something. I mean, this is
right?
invisible.
Right.
Yeah,
And they weren't comfortable with,
that's
um,
that'd make you angry.
yeah, totally. I spend so much time. Like, you people are not listening to me. We're all saying, do you want to talk to me? Like, stop it. I can talk about things, and if I cry, I fucking cry. It's no big deal. I will move on.
Oh, fuck,
So,
don't get me started with crying, Darlene. I can't fucking watch anything on TV without crying.
right?
You talking about Ellen DeGeneres. We're talking about Ellen DeGeneres earlier. I can't watch that show without. Well, I laugh constantly through Ellen, but there's always that moment where I gotta cry. You know, she gotta bring somebody up who is barely getting by. Oh, here's 10 grand. Right?
Right?
Oh my god! And then I start crying. Right? And
yeah. That's a good cry.
It is.
There's
good.
Nothing wrong with crying.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. I tell that to my wife every time when she looks over at me, and I go, "Leave me alone, okay? It's not my fault that we're watching America's Got Talent, and there's an autistic kid that's blind and can sing really good."
Right? It's so true. But you know, the thing is that people are not comfortable with other people displaying feelings of any kind either, right? So I'm just like, deal with it, people. This is me.
Yeah, well, don't be around me when the playoffs on the go then. Lord, geez.
Right? So, yeah.
I guess movies and stuff and TV, that must be difficult, eh?
Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time watching TV and muting the commercials or muting different parts of the shows. There is so much gun violence in shows and movies, and it was unreal. So that was part of my I'll say avoidance, but it was I'll say aided by my daughter and my husband, because every time something would come on that was going to be a loud noise or a gunshot or whatever, they would mute the TV or turn it off. And I'm like, you guys got to stop doing that, because this was during my therapy that I said this, but I said, I can't hide from all of this stuff. Like, I need to be exposed as much as possible so that I can learn to control it, my reactions to everything. And the more I'm exposed to it, the better I'm going to be at the coping. Am I going to be perfect at it? No. When it takes me by surprise, I'm going to lose my shit.
Yep.
But please don't switch the channel. Treat me like I'm normal. If you were sitting with someone else, would you be changing the channel or muting it? No, you wouldn't. So please don't treat me like I'm different. I'm not. I'm just going through something that I need to work on. That's it.
That's a trigger for you, isn't it? When someone treats you different.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And I get mad. I get really mad because, it happened. Talk to me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me a question. Yes, there might be a chance that I'm going to cry, but there's probably a good chance that I won't. And I'm going to tell you whatever you want to know. Like, when I went back to work after the accident, one of the guys came in and sat down on my desk, and he said, Darlene, I've heard so many stories. And he said, I want to know the truth from the horse's mouth, so to speak, like what happened and the details. And he said, are you comfortable sharing that with me right now? And I said, Sean, you are the first person that's actually come to me and said, share your story, and asked me if I was okay with it. And I said, I'm more than willing to share it. I said, are you okay if it happens that I get emotional? And he said, yeah. And he said, I would expect you to, like, just because it was only a couple months after. But I was like, wow, thank you for treating me like a person and asking if I can tell it to you. Like, that was huge to me.
And let me just say to that, Sean, is it?
Yep.
What a great way to word it.
Yes.
Are you ready to share?
Yep.
I mean, that was perfect. So simple.
Well, it was. And I just thought, most people don't say anything, but for him to be that considerate and say, if you're ready, and he was willing to wait if I wasn't ready to share. And I was like, no, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do it, because I need to do it. I need to share.
Yeah.
And it was actually his girlfriend who then I gave the story to. I said, you know what, you showed me kindness and appreciation, and you wanted to know from me what had happened so you could have the truth, and you treated me like an individual. So I said, if Rosie, who was the girl who did it, if she wants the story, it's hers, she can have it. So she was the one that wrote my 1 year later. It was a 2-part series in the Telegram about my shooting.
How did it feel when that story was released?
I was nervous, only because well, no, I shouldn't say. I was a bit nervous, but before the story was released, I shared it with all my family. I told everybody that this was coming out. I didn't want anybody to be taken by surprise. But I felt, it might be weird to say the word vindicated, but that's how I felt. I felt empowered that I was ready to give it, and it came from me. It didn't come from, someone who knew me telling a story that might not have been accurate. Not saying that they would have lied, but it wouldn't have been accurate. And it was my story, my survival, and my spin on it, not anybody else's. And I felt really empowered doing that. And that was a huge part of my therapy too. Like it was very therapeutic, and to see it, and have people go, "Oh my God, I didn't know that happened to you," or "Oh my God, I didn't know that that's how it affected you. You acted so normal." And I'm like, yeah, because you don't always know what's going on in somebody's head. You can't see what's turning in my wheels. But now you know. And I was happy that it could give other people an appreciation for what people with trauma struggle with and that you don't see.
People with
Yeah.
PTSD, we hide our feelings better than anybody.
We do.
People with PTSD, we wear a mask all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That mask is made out of very, very heavy material. It is hard to wear the PTSD mask and hide your feelings. And when you get home after the end of the day, we are mentally exhausted.
Exhausted, yes. I tell people that especially during that time, I was a really good actor, because they all would say, "Oh, you seem so normal." But I am normal. I'm just normal with PTSD. And you didn't know anything was wrong with me if I chose not to share it with you. And, it was mentally exhausting to cater to them, we'll say, and be all, normal or happy or whatever it is they want to say. But yeah, you're right. We do wear masks.
You know what? That's true. I never thought of it that way, Darlene. We're good actors.
We are good actors.
Yeah.
Very good actors.
If there's a movie producer out there listening right now, pay attention. Darlene and Jamie, we can act.
We can act. I acted every day of my life for 6 years.
Yeah. You need me to cry on camera? No sweat, my dear. No sweat.
Right.
All I gotta do is think of a bit of Ellen DeGeneres, and
the tears will come.
Was it what's the other show that gets me? America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
I get that. When a kid comes out and does something amazing, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is beautiful."
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what I think though? Talking about PTSD and suffering a trauma, I guess this would be a positive. I'm going to look at it as a positive, but it gives us, I think, a better appreciation for the fragility of life, and for this, how special it is, and just your health and everything about your life. I think it gave me, a huge appreciation for how special it is and important, and how easily it can be taken away from you.
Yes.
Big time. So, if one positive thing of my PTSD has come out of it, it totally has given me a new appreciation for my life, and the life of my loved ones, kind of thing. So, but I don't know that everybody else is quite as sensitive as that. And in some ways that's too bad, because, they take way too much for granted. I will never take anything for granted again, ever.
Well, you're talking about having gratitude for PTSD. I myself feel the same way. I now have gratitude for my PTSD, because without my PTSD, I wouldn't have wrote books. I wouldn't have started PTSD Buddies. I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. So
that's right.
And through PTSD Buddies, I have met thousands of people, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And every time I talk to a new member, I learn something. I'm learning new stuff from you right now. Like, right? Like you, talking to others has really made me a PTSD survivor.
Big time, yeah. That's what it's all about. And, if there's one thing, I knew early on that I wanted to do something I knew that I wanted to get well, number one. But number two, I also knew that I wanted to be able to, if I was able to inspire anyone in a small way to talk to someone, or to give them the courage to talk to someone, or show them that, you know what, you can do it. It's fucking hard, but you can go through it, and you can not get past it as in overcome it, but you can learn to live better and have better coping mechanisms and have a better quality of life. And I thought, I need to do that. I need to do that. And during my therapy sessions, my therapist showed me a thing on Facebook, and it said she walked with the weight of the world on her shoulders, but made it look like a pair of wings. And she said, you know, that's what I'm doing. And I was like, wow, really? You think that? And she said, I know that, Darlene, you are. And I said, I really want to be able to inspire people and to know that if I can do it, so can you. So can you. And I want people to know that you're not by yourself. You don't struggle alone.
That's a big thing.
So,
People think they're
yeah.
alone with PTSD.
Yeah, and they're not.
You felt alone for a while.
I did. I really did. I didn't know anybody who had suffered from PTSD or been diagnosed with it, or really that had suffered a major trauma. So I was like totally in the dark and completely alone, because nobody around me knew how to help me. Nobody knew how to stop the night terrors and the nightmares and all my triggers. I really felt that I was by myself. And like I said, when people didn't want to talk about it, I thought, well, great. I don't know where to go to get help. I don't know how to get help. And nobody wants to talk to me about what's going on in my head.
Are the guns still in your house?
Nope. 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 I never was an avid hunter. I will never pick another one up. I have no reason to. But I want people to be safe as well. And I don't.
Yes.
Too many people don't realize the foolishness, I guess, they're getting on with, and, you know, thinking that they're invincible and it's never going to happen to me. I'm the fucking poster child for it can happen to you. So part of my therapy, when I can do it, I'm not quite ready yet, is that I want to go to College of North Atlantic, and when they do the firearms courses, just, you know, talk to people about the gun safety and about how important it is not to leave your weapon loaded, for one, and, you know, store it properly, and so that people can't get at it, children especially. You know, I'm living proof that, you know, when you make stupid choices, bad things can happen. And just by the grace of God that I'm here to be able to talk about it. So, you know, it could easily be the other way. So people need to know, need to be safe. So.
Darlene, you are tough as they come. They're tough as they come, my God.
Yeah, you might say bulletproof.
Yeah.
No.
I'm
It only hit me. It went through me. It just didn't kill me, right?
Yeah, took a left turn and everything, sure.
It did. Yeah, I'm a spidey bitch, and I'm stubborn as hell. So, you know, this wasn't going to keep me down for long. And like I said, I'm not cured by any means. I'm just in a better position to help myself if things happen, and if you know, triggers happen, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Darlene, with something so traumatic, do you have other things besides PTSD? Like myself, I deal with depression with my PTSD. Anything else besides PTSD?
No, it's more the anxiety. So the generalized anxiety that I had as a teen and a child and a young adult, you know, I still face that. I am medicated, and I don't mind telling people I'm medicated. You know, I have to increase my medication for when I was going through my PTSD therapy, and that was at my doctor's suggestion. She said, "You are going to be going through some rough things. You need something to help you take the edge off." And to help you cope. So that's what I did. And I have no problem. Like a lot of people say, oh, I can't tell anybody that I take pills. Well, you know, they're part of my recovery, and they're what's helping me. So that's it. So be it. That's what it is. And if I have to take them for the rest of my life, I will.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I take medication too. I see a psychologist. I do my things. I do my steps. That helps me every day. That's what you got to do. You got to keep doing you.
You do have to keep doing it, and it's not something that you can heal from and then just forget about. It is an ongoing, everyday, lifelong journey. And sometimes I felt really pissed off about that, you know, with the my brother-in-law being unsafe with his gun, that what this has put on me, a lifetime of this. But, sometimes I just look and say, well, you know what? God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and I'm one tough son of a bitch, so here we go.
Yep.
So
Darn right
that's
you
it, yeah.
are.
I have to look at it that way, and people might say, oh, she thinks she's tough or whatever. That gets me through to say to myself, you have the strength. You can do this. Look what you've done so far. Look how far you've come. You can do this. You're a warrior. And a lot of the self-talk is helpful to me. And, nobody's going to take that away from me. I did this myself, and I know so many others can too. So, what I want people to know is, believe in yourself, because that's tough. One of my coworkers gave me this poster. It was after my therapy, after I graduated from therapy, and it was a kitten looking into a puddle of water, and in the reflection was a tiger. And she said, "This reminds me of you." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Here you are, meek and mild, and unassuming and quiet and this." And she said, "Behind you though is a tiger, and you're ferocious and you're strong." And I was like, "Oh my God, wow, thank you." And I still have it. I look at it when I need to feel empowered and I need a reminder that I can do this.
Darlene,
So
are you listening to yourself? Do you hear how many people you are inspiring?
I hope so.
You
I
are
do.
inspiring everybody around you.
I'm hoping that's the case. Yeah.
Your
If I can
friends
do
are
it,
putting posters up of you as a kitten and a tiger. Your daughter is writing stories about you for school. You are
yeah.
inspiring everyone around you. You're inspiring me. You are inspiring
Thank
our
you.
listeners right now.
That's awesome. Thank you. I hope so. I just want people to know that, I was in a really dark place, and I pushed myself through, and they can too. And if it helps just one person, it's so worth telling my story and telling my struggles, because, you know, if nobody else believes that you can do it, you need to believe that you can, and that you're not by yourself. And if they want to reach out to me and just, talk, or just vent,
Yep.
I'm good with that, and I'm good for people to do that, because I know how important it was for me to have that. So yeah.
Darlene, I'm all out of questions, and I'm really enjoying talking to you. And my last question was going to say, was I'm going to leave the floor to you with final thoughts, with any final
Okay.
words or anything. But you kind of just did that right there, with some great
Sort
final
of, I
words.
guess.
But I don't want to cut you off. Is there any final words? Anything you want to put out there? Any stories that you want to share that you haven't shared yet in the podcast? The floor is yours.
Well, it's just more of what I went through, and some people really did try to help me. I'm not sure if you're aware of a hockey player by the name of Clint Malarchuk,
Yes.
and what happened to him when he was on the ice. But I think it was back in the 80s, and someone actually had recommended his book to me, and unfortunately, he had attempted suicide. Thankfully, he wasn't successful, but he had attempted suicide after the situation on the ice. And I had been talking to one of my friends at work about it, and he's like, "Oh my God, if we go on YouTube, we can see it, and I'll show it to you." It was a really bad idea. So this is kind of funny, but not so funny. I can look back at it now and think it's hilarious, but not then. So I put it up on my work computer, and I YouTubed his name. And at that moment, when the skate cut his neck and his jugular was cut and the blood was like, just, you could see with every beat of his heart, it was just going and going and going. And I had a full on meltdown. I was him in the moment, thinking, I'm going to die. I'm going to die, because I knew how that felt to be in a life threatening situation where I knew my life was at risk, and I was feeling what he was feeling there on the ice, even though it had been like 30 odd years. I was living that with him at that moment, and I lost my shit. I started to cry. I started to hyperventilate. Chris, who was one of my coworkers, he was trying his hardest to turn off the computer, and he couldn't do it. So he finally just slapped the laptop down, and he took off, and he left me crying to myself. And he came back about 5 minutes later, and he peeked in, and he goes, "I'm so sorry, Darlene. I didn't think that was going to happen to you, or that was going to do it to you." I'm like, "It's okay. This was a trigger for me. You didn't know that. I didn't know that. This was the first time I had been through that kind of thing, right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And we laughed at it later. He's like, "I'm so sorry." So, you know, it was also learning for me too of what I could and couldn't do, sort of, you know what I mean? Like the whole trigger thing. I was like, yeah, guess I won't be watching videos of that anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was a big realization, you know, and people were like, oh God, this is what happened. So again, it was part of the learning. Yes, I might look normal, quote unquote, but here's what's happening, and you know these things are what can be triggers. But I've never watched that again, by the way. But
Yeah.
I'm better today than I was January or July 27th, 2014. Until tomorrow, I'll be even better. So you know it's been a long road. It's nearly 7 years since my accident. I do commemorate the accident every single year, but it's not about the accident. It's about my surviving and about my guardian angels. And it's about the people, I make it about the people who saved me, who treated me, that took my life, who cared for my life, from the policemen to the paramedics to the nurses and the surgeons and everybody who worked their butts off to save me. It's about them. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for everything they've done. And yeah, I survive. I celebrate surviving. And I didn't think I could be Darlene again. I'm Darlene 2.0 now. So
You're
that's how
not.
I look at it.
I've heard people say that. Yeah, Darlene 2.0. I like it.
Yeah, I'm Darlene 2.0. I really didn't know that. I didn't believe way back when that I could get through what I got through and work to feel better. I never ever thought that I was going to be not scared or that the nightmares would stop. I still have them every once in a while, but it's every once in a while. It's not every night. Um, yeah, I want people to know you can make your life better. You can do things to recover and continue. So I guess that's my final words. Don't give up. Please don't give up.
Don't give up. Great
Yeah.
word. Final words from a true PTSD survivor.
Oh,
Darlene, it has been such a pleasure talking to you and hearing your story.
thank
You
you,
are
Darlene. I hope
so.
I didn't go on too much.
No, you didn't go on too long. And by all means, if you ever wanted to do another episode, I would be all for it because you
Awesome.
inspired the heck out of me. You said you want to inspire one person. Well, consider yourself accomplished. I am
Ah,
inspired.
thank you. Thank you. Well, you do great things too. Like this is, I think this is amazing. That I wish the PTSD buddies had been around when I was going through it because it's amazing. And even if people just sit and listen and take it in, you know, that's even good than not being alone and to know that there are people out there who understand. And if they need to, they can reach out to us. So that's awesome.
That's so true, Darlene. So true, Darlene. Thanks so much for doing this.
No problem.
How,
It really was my pleasure, and it was part of my definitely my continued therapy. Every time I talk, it gets that much better.
I was going to ask. I guess I do have one more question. How did it feel?
Awesome.
It felt good
I
doing it.
feel fantastic. You know, I'm proud of myself. I'm really
You
proud of
should be.
myself. Nobody could have done it for me. I had to take every step by myself, so to speak, but I did it. And it's not perfect. I still have triggers. I still need to cope. But yeah, nobody can take it from me that I fought PTSD and I won.
Keep working on that book, Darlene. I'm looking forward to you releasing it one day.
Awesome. Yes, you will have a copy. I'm hoping to do it soon. In the next couple of years, I'm thinking it'll be out. We'll see.
Yes.
But
I
yeah,
can't wait. I can't wait. And text me after too, because I'll get you copies of my book.
yes, I will for
Stay
sure.
stay on the line. I just want to say goodbye to our viewers, and after I say goodbye to them, I can say goodbye to you properly.
Sure.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, to all the people that are listening, I hope you were inspired by Darlene's story as I was. She is an amazing person, as you all heard. She is a true survivor of PTSD. If you're out there and you're listening to this story, I hope you did get inspired. You know what? I don't have to say I hope. I know you did. And if you're going through something similar, listen to Darlene's words. Play back the podcast again. She gave us some great tips. And if you out there yourself are dealing with a similar situation or you're dealing with PTSD, look for PTSD buddies on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And I hope you'll find your PTSD buddy soon. Take care, everybody, and we'll have another episode in 2 weeks. Cheers. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this episode of the PTSD Buddies podcast. Look for more episodes of the PTSD Buddies podcast wherever podcasts are found. Special shout out to our sponsors, Tema Foundation and the Spartan Wellness. And remember, if you or somebody you know is dealing with PTSD and you're looking for a buddy, look for PTSD Buddies on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and check out our PTSD Buddies YouTube channel for helpful videos. Join PTSD Buddies today and find your PTSD buddy.